Hey, welcome to the English Podcast Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving deep into forgiveness.
Ooh, forgiveness.
With Sarah, our expert guide. You know, in everyday life, we toss this word around like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But when you really stop to think about it, forgiveness is this incredibly powerful force. It's about letting go of all that heavy baggage from the past, those grudges and resentments that can just weigh us down.
Right.
So we're going to unpack all of that today, explore what forgiveness really means, why it's so hard, and how it can actually transform our lives.
Yeah, it's true. We often underestimate the impact forgiveness can have. It's not just some, fluffy feel-good concept. It has real tangible effects on our well-being, our relationships, everything.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to explore today.
Yeah.
So Sarah, let's start with the basics. What exactly is forgiveness?
Okay, well, at its core, forgiveness is about releasing those negative feelings, resentment, anger, bitterness that we hold towards someone who has hurt us.
Okay.
It's a conscious choice to let go of that desire for revenge or punishment.
So it's not about saying what they did was okay or brushing it under the rug.
Not at all. It's about acknowledging the pain, acknowledging that what happened was wrong, but choosing to move forward without being chained to those negative emotions.
Okay, that makes sense. But why is it so hard to do? I mean, if it's so good for us, why do we cling to these grudges?
It's a natural human instinct.
Yeah.
Holding on to anger can feel protective, like we're somehow in control or preventing ourselves from getting hurt again.
Right.
But what's fascinating is that research is showing that holding on to anger actually rewires our brains, creating these negative thought patterns.
Wow.
It's like we're stuck in a loop, replaying the hurt over and over.
Wow, so it's like we're actually causing ourselves more suffering by not forgiving.
Exactly. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right.
The one who suffers most is the one holding on to the grudge.
Okay. That's a powerful image. So letting go, even if the other person never apologizes or even acknowledges what they did, that's where the true freedom lies.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that forgiveness is ultimately a gift we give ourselves. It's about freeing ourselves from the prison of the past.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light here.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the benefits. Because you mentioned forgiveness has a real impact on our well-being. What does that look like?
The benefits are incredible. It affects us on so many levels. Mentally, emotionally, physically, even spiritually.
Wow. We're going to start with the mental and emotional benefits because I think that's where we feel it most directly.
Okay, so when you forgive, you break free from that cycle of negativity and rumination. You stop replaying the hurt over and over in your head.
Right.
As a result, you experience less anxiety, lower stress levels, and fewer symptoms of depression.
So it's like forgiveness is this mental detox.
Exactly. You're clearing out all that emotional toxicity and making space for peace and clarity.
Yeah. I could definitely see how that would lead to greater happiness and a sense of inner peace. But you also mentioned physical benefits. How does forgiveness impact our bodies?
Well, think about it. When you're constantly stressed and angry, your body's in fight or flight mode. Your cortisol levels are through the roof.
Yeah.
That takes a toll on your heart, your immune system, everything.
Right.
Forgiveness, on the other hand, helps lower those stress hormones, which has a ripple effect on your physical health.
Right.
It can lead to lower blood pressure, reduced risk of heart disease, better sleep.
Wow. So holding on to grudges literally hurts our hearts.
It can, in a very real way.
Right.
And it's not just our hearts. Forgiveness has been linked to a stronger immune system, reduced inflammation, and even less chronic pain.
This is incredible. I'm starting to see forgiveness in a whole new light. It's not just some abstract moral concept. It's essential for our well-being on every level. But Sarah, we've talked about why forgiveness is so hard. So how do we actually do it? Where do we even begin?
You're right, it's not always easy, but there are practical steps we can take. One model I find particularly helpful is the REACH forgiveness model.
REACH.
Yeah.
Okay.
It outlines 5 stages that can guide us through the process.
REACH. I like it. Tell me more.
So it stands for recall, empathize, altruistic gift, commit, and hold on.
Okay, let's break that down. What does recall mean in this context?
It's about acknowledging the hurt, allowing yourself to fully experience those emotions without judgment. It's about naming what happened and how it made you feel.
Yeah.
This step is crucial because if we try to bury the pain, it will just fester and resurface later.
Right, we have to face it head on to move through it.
Exactly. Then comes the empathize stage. Now, this doesn't mean condoning what happened or saying it was okay.
Right.
It's about trying to see the situation from the other person's perspective.
This is where I get stuck, to be honest. It feels counterintuitive to try and empathize with someone who's hurt me.
I understand. It can be a difficult step, but remember, empathy doesn't equal agreement.
Okay.
It's about trying to understand the other person's motivations, their background, their own pain. Maybe they were acting out of their own woundedness, or they weren't even aware of the impact their actions had on you.
Okay, so it's not about letting them off the hook, but about gaining a wider perspective.
Exactly. It's about seeing them as a complex human being rather than just the villain in your story.
Yeah.
And this can actually make forgiveness easier because it helps us release some of that anger and resentment.
That's a really interesting point. So it's about recognizing their humanity,
Yeah.
even in the midst of our own pain.
Yes. And that leads us to the next stage, altruistic gift.
Altruistic gift. What does that mean?
It's about recognizing that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. It's not about them. It's about freeing ourselves from the burden of anger and resentment.
Right.
It's about choosing our own peace and well-being.
I love that framing. It takes the focus off of the other person and puts it back on us and our own healing.
Exactly. Then we move to the commit stage. This is where we make the conscious decision to forgive, to let go of the resentment.
So it's like making a vow to ourselves.
Yes, it's a powerful declaration. And finally, we have,
Hold on to what?
hold on to the forgiveness. Because it's a process, not a one-time event, those negative feelings might try to creep back in, and that's okay.
So it's about staying committed to that choice we've made, even when it's tough.
Exactly. And it's about being patient with ourselves. Healing takes time.
Yeah.
Forgiveness can be especially challenging when we're talking about deep betrayals or hurts that have left lasting scars.
Right.
Sometimes people get stuck on the idea that forgiving means forgetting
Well, yeah.
or minimizing what happened.
Yeah, like if I forgive them, then it wasn't a big deal.
Exactly. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It's about acknowledging the depth of the pain, honoring those feelings, and then making a conscious choice to move forward without being defined by that pain.
Yeah, it's about reclaiming our power
Yes,
and choosing to heal.
absolutely. And it's important to remember that forgiveness doesn't mean we have to reconcile with the person who hurt us.
Right.
Sometimes for our own safety and well-being, it's necessary to maintain distance from that person.
Okay, so forgiveness can exist even without reconciliation. It's about finding peace within ourselves, regardless of the other person's actions.
Precisely. And sometimes reconciliation simply isn't possible.
Yeah.
Maybe the other person isn't willing to acknowledge the harm they caused, or maybe they've passed away. But even in those cases, forgiveness can still bring a profound sense of healing and closure.
It's about letting go of that burden we've been carrying, freeing ourselves from the chains of the past.
Yes. And this brings up another question that often arises. Does forgiving someone mean we have to let go of the need for justice?
That's a great question. It's like people think forgiveness equals letting the offender off the hook.
And that's a misconception. Forgiveness and justice are not mutually exclusive. We can forgive someone and still believe that they should be held accountable for their actions.
Okay, so it's about separating the personal act of forgiveness from the need for accountability.
Exactly. And sometimes seeking justice is actually a necessary part of the healing process. It can help us feel validated, knowing that the wrong was acknowledged, and it can also help protect others from being harmed in the future.
So it's about creating a sense of balance, ensuring that actions have consequences.
Yes. And remember, justice doesn't always have to look like punishment.
Right.
It can also look like restitution, making amends, or taking steps to prevent future harm.
So it's about finding a resolution that brings a sense of peace and closure to the situation, both for the victim and for the community as a whole.
As we're talking about justice, it's important to acknowledge that forgiveness can also be a powerful force for social change and healing.
That's right. It's not just about individual healing. Forgiveness can have a ripple effect on entire communities and even nations.
I'm thinking of examples like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa after apartheid, where victims and perpetrators were able to come together, share their stories, and offer forgiveness. That process was instrumental in healing the deep wounds of the past and paving the way for a more just and equitable society.
It's amazing how forgiveness can create bridges where there were once walls of division and resentment.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity, even in the face of unimaginable pain and suffering.
It's about choosing hope over despair, love over hate, and understanding over judgment.
Exactly. And it starts with each of us.
Yeah.
Every act of forgiveness, no matter how small, contributes to a more compassionate and just world.
I love that thought. It's like we're all part of this intricate web of interconnectedness, and our actions, our choices have the power to ripple outward, impacting the lives of others in ways we may never fully comprehend.
And forgiveness is one of the most powerful ways we can create positive change in the world.
Yeah.
It's about breaking the cycle of violence, hatred, and resentment. It's about choosing to heal, to rebuild, to create a future where love and understanding prevail.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've talked about the definition of forgiveness, the benefits, the challenges, the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, the connection to justice, and even the broader societal implications. But there's one more crucial aspect of forgiveness that I think we need to address before we wrap up.
You're talking about self-forgiveness, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something we often neglect, but it's just as important as forgiving others.
It's true. We can be so hard on ourselves, holding on to guilt and shame for past mistakes, sometimes for years or even decades.
And that can really weigh us down, preventing us from fully embracing our present and moving forward with confidence and joy.
Absolutely. Self-forgiveness is about releasing ourselves from that self-judgment and allowing ourselves to heal and grow.
Okay, so how do we actually practice self-forgiveness? Is it the same process as forgiving others?
There are definitely similarities.
Yeah.
It starts with acknowledging the mistake, the hurt we caused, the thing we're holding on to.
Right.
And just like with forgiving others, we need to practice empathy.
Empathy towards ourselves. That sounds a bit strange.
It might feel unusual at first, but it's crucial.
Okay.
It's about trying to understand why we did what we did.
Right.
What were the circumstances? What were we feeling? What did we know at the time?
So it's about seeing ourselves through a lens of compassion rather than judgment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're human, that we all make mistakes, and that we're all worthy of forgiveness, even ourselves.
Yeah, that can be a tough one to swallow, especially if we've done something that's caused harm to others.
It can be very challenging, but it's important to remember that we can't change the past.
Right.
We can only learn from it and make amends where possible, and that's where self-forgiveness comes in. It allows us to release the guilt and shame, to accept ourselves fully, flaws and all, and to move forward with a renewed sense of purpose and hope.
Self-forgiveness is about giving ourselves permission to heal, to grow, to become the best versions of ourselves.
It's about recognizing that we're worthy of love and compassion, even when we make mistakes.
It's about embracing our humanity, flaws and all, and choosing to move forward with grace and understanding.
You know, I think one of the most beautiful things about self-forgiveness is that it often opens the door to forgiving others more easily.
That's an interesting point. How so?
Well, when we learn to forgive ourselves, we develop greater compassion and empathy for others. We understand that everyone makes mistakes, that we're all on this journey of growth and learning, and that we all deserve a chance to redeem ourselves.
It's like self-forgiveness creates this ripple effect of kindness and understanding that extends outward to our relationships with others.
Exactly. It softens our hearts, allowing us to see the humanity in others, even those who have hurt us.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. If someone is struggling with self-forgiveness, what advice would you offer? What are some practical steps they can take to begin this journey?
That's a great question, and it's one that many of us grapple with at some point in our lives. I think the first step is to simply acknowledge those feelings of guilt and shame. Don't try to push them away or pretend they don't exist.
So it's about facing those uncomfortable emotions head on.
Exactly. And then try to cultivate a sense of self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a close friend or loved one who is struggling.
Right. It can be so easy to judge ourselves harshly, but we would never speak to a friend that way.
It's true. And remember, making a mistake doesn't make you a bad person.
Right.
It makes you human. We all stumble and fall at times. What matters is how we pick ourselves up and move forward.
It's about learning from our mistakes and using those experiences to grow and evolve.
Exactly. And self-forgiveness is an essential part of that growth process.
It's about releasing the weight of the past and embracing the present moment with a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
It's about recognizing our inherent worthiness and choosing to move forward with love and compassion for ourselves and others.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today.
It's been a pleasure. And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring this powerful topic. Forgiveness, both of others and of ourselves, is a journey that can lead to profound healing, growth, and transformation.
Join us next time as we continue our deep dive into the power of forgiveness.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive into forgiveness, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not always a simple or easy process.
Yeah,
We've talked about the incredible benefits,
right.
but there can be challenges and complexities along the way.
For sure. What kind of situations are you thinking of?
Well, for instance, if someone is in an abusive relationship, forgiveness can sometimes be misconstrued as condoning the abuse. It's crucial to prioritize safety and boundaries in those situations.
So forgiveness doesn't mean we have to stay in a harmful situation or tolerate mistreatment.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most loving and forgiving act is to remove ourselves from that situation and seek help and support.
It's about protecting ourselves and others from further harm.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that forgiveness takes time.
Yeah.
It's a process that unfolds at its own pace. We can't force it or rush it.
Right. We need to be patient with ourselves and honor our own healing journey.
Precisely. And we need to be mindful of the potential for re-traumatization. If we've experienced a significant trauma, rushing into forgiveness before we're ready can actually be detrimental.
So it's about approaching forgiveness with self-awareness and a healthy dose of caution, especially when trauma is involved.
Exactly. And seeking professional guidance from a therapist or counselor can be incredibly helpful in navigating those complex situations.
Okay. So we've talked about some potential pitfalls of forgiveness, but let's shift gears and focus on the incredible power it holds. Throughout this deep dive, I've been struck by the idea of forgiveness as a force for positive change, not just in our individual lives, but in the world around us.
It's true. Forgiveness has a ripple effect. When we choose to forgive, we break the cycle of hurt and retaliation, and we create space for healing and reconciliation.
It's like we're planting seeds of compassion and understanding that can grow into something beautiful and transformative.
Exactly. And those seeds can spread far and wide, impacting not only our personal relationships, but our communities and even the world at large.
I'm thinking of examples like Nelson Mandela forgiving his captors after decades of imprisonment, or the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, where victims of apartheid were able to confront their abusers and offer forgiveness.
Those are powerful examples of how forgiveness can heal deep wounds and pave the way for a more just and peaceful future.
And it's not just about grand gestures on the world stage, it's also about the everyday acts of forgiveness that happen in our homes, our workplaces, our communities.
Yes, it's about choosing to let go of a grudge against a friend or family member. It's about offering a second chance to someone who's made a mistake. It's about extending grace and compassion to ourselves and others.
And those seemingly small acts of forgiveness can have a profound impact, creating a ripple effect of kindness and understanding that can transform our relationships in our communities.
Absolutely. It's about building a world where forgiveness is the norm, not the exception.
And that's a world I want to live in. A world where we choose understanding over judgment, compassion over anger, and forgiveness over resentment.
Me too. It's a world where healing and hope are possible, even in the face of great pain and suffering.
Well, Sarah, as we wrap up this incredible deep dive into forgiveness, I'm left with a sense of hope and possibility. Forgiveness, while challenging, is truly a transformative force with the power to heal wounds, mend relationships, and create a more just and compassionate world.
I couldn't agree more. It's a gift we can give ourselves and others, a gift that unlocks a world of peace, joy, and love.
To our listeners, we encourage you to embrace the power of forgiveness in your own lives. It may not be easy, but it's a journey worth taking. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources, support groups, and therapists who can help you navigate the path of forgiveness and experience its incredible transformative power.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
It's been an honor to share this space with you. Until next time, keep diving deep.